And so the 4% rule is also known as a safe withdrawal rate for retirement. And this basically says that you can spend 4% of your retirement fund every single year without ever running out of money. And this works by saving up a certain amount of money, investing this into stocks and bonds, where you should be able to earn an average return of about 7% every single year. From this 7%, 3% is going to go towards inflation, and the remaining 4% is what you can spend every year. And the theory is that your original starting amount will never run out. In fact, it should increase by about 3% every single year to track with inflation. So let's look at some real numbers. Let's say that you were able to save up $1 million for retirement. If you multiply this by 4%, this is $40,000, and this is what you can spend every single year. And so the 4% rule was made famous by 3 professors at Trinity University. And they back-tested stock and bond portfolios for 30 years, and they found that there was a 95% success rate when withdrawing 4% of your retirement fund every single year. And so you might be wondering if this also works for FIRE, because usually when somebody retires early, they need more than 30 years. And so what I did was I looked at the past 100 years of S&P 500 data, and I also looked at the past 100 years of the Treasury bond market, and I'll show you that right now. And we can see here that the average stock return for the past 100 years is over 10%. And so this is going to include all the good years and all the bad years. It includes the Great Depression, World War II, the Vietnam War, stagflation in the 70s, the tech bubble bursting in the 90s, the global financial crisis, COVID, and today. And so obviously the stock market is down right now. In fact, it's down about 20% as of recording this video. But again, we're looking at averages, and the long-term trajectory of the stock market is the same. And so that's what the 4% rule is based on. And so we can do the exact same thing with inflation. Here I went back to 1922 to test the inflation for the past 100 years. It's only 2.91%. And so again, this year inflation is higher than average. It's closer to 8%. But even if we look back here at just the past 10 years, the average is still about 3%. And so here's a spreadsheet that I created so you can see how much you need if you want to live off of the 4% rule. There's a link down in the description if you want to download it. And so here you can just put in the amount that you have saved. So for an example, we'll just do $100,000, and we can see that with the average 7% return minus 3% inflation, that leaves us with $4,000 spending per year and $333 per month. So obviously $100,000 is probably not enough, but if we bump this up to $500,000, now that gives us $20,000 a year, or $1,666 every single month. And so on the column on the left here, it keeps track of years. And so if we take our original amount of $500,000 and we add the 3% of inflation, this number actually goes up to $515,000. We can see that adds together right there. And this works every single year. And so your original amount should be increasing on average 3% every single year. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to post updates about my progress with the 4% rule. So if you're interested in that, be sure to subscribe. And now we're going to look at some sample portfolios to see how they stacked up with the historical data. And so we can see here that if we had $1 million to invest and we put half in stocks, half in bonds, it would return an average of 8.15% if we're using all the historical data. And so you can actually change this number to anything you want. These numbers aren't going to change, and that's the most important thing. This is the percent it returns, the inflation amount, and then what's remaining left over. So if we go back to $1 million, we can see that that's going to return 8.15%. Once we subtract inflation, we're left with over 5%. Which is higher than the 4% that we need for the 4% rule. So some people would say that the 4% rule is actually a little bit conservative. And so it's important to keep in mind that all of these numbers are based on historical averages, and there's no telling what's going to happen in the future. All we can do is rely on the data that we have. And so now let's talk about some ways that you can live off the 4% rule. And the first one is to get rid of debt. You want to be in a position where you're earning interest, you're not the one who's paying it. And so let's say, for example, you have a $10,000 car loan and you're paying 4% interest on this. That means every year you're paying $400 in interest, and it's not deducting the amount you owe at all. And it gets worse than that because this $10,000 also has an opportunity cost, because you could be investing it. You could be buying something as safe as treasury bills, which are currently earning about 4% interest. And so now, instead of losing $400 a year, you're making $400 a year, and this is actually a spread of $800. And the last thing is to increase your income, and you can do this by learning a new skill, for example, computer programming or website design, and this will also help sustain you once you do actually quit your job and start living off the 4% rule. There are also a lot of criticisms of the 4% rule, but if you're curious to see how my experience is living off the 4% rule, be sure to subscribe right here because I will be posting updates. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.